Hey there, welcome to episode number 36 of Killer POV, the episode I'm calling our post-Halloween Blues episode.
Yeah.
Blues. I don't know.
Everyone's a little bummed and tired. And
Right? It's over. This is like October is our month to celebrate. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob G from FEARnet. With me as always is Rebekah McKendry from Fangoria.
Greetings, guys.
And Elric Kane from Inside Horror.
Me. Hi.
Owner of the Jumpcut Cafe.
For now.
Are you still selling shirts, by the way?
For now.
What?
Both are good answers. I don't know what tomorrow. I take it day by day.
Yeah.
He scares me every single time he says that.
I'm
Do you
a
have
day by day kind
Jumpcut
of guy.
mugs?
No, but
you need to make those.
You know what?
We would all buy
I looked
them.
into it, and they're really expensive to set up. Like hundreds and hundreds of dollars to set up the thing that will then make them
the
cheaper.
logo?
So it's
Wow.
like, that's. I always thought mugs would be the cheapest thing on it.
Right?
You
Yeah.
should do like sponsored mugs. So like Fango can buy 10 and then you have Fangoria
Boom.
mugs and Shock Till You Drop can
Look
buy
at that.
10 and FEARnet can buy 10. And
There you
Yeah,
go.
you're in charge.
then you get like custom mugs.
You're now in charge of that.
I don't want to be in charge of that.
Did you just
Elric.
become the marketing for Jumpcut Cafe?
You did.
Anyways, we digressed tremendously, but no guests today. It's just us because obviously October was really, really hectic. We saw a lot of movies, went to a lot of events. We got to talk about most of them on our previous episodes, but this is going to be our kind of wrap up of everything that happened Halloween wise and kind of the stuff that we've been up to. So, we want to start with events, right? Because I figured that's
if there's and movies, anything that came up through the
well,
events.
the last thing we talked about was Goblin. And I think we talked about that in the last show.
Yeah, we did.
And then a bunch of stuff has happened since then. Elric, I wanted to ask you about, obviously you had the 12 Hours of Horror at Jumpcut. You went to Almost Human at Party Beyond Fest. So why don't you kick us off with some of those?
Yeah, I'll go quick. Almost Human is a really fun film. The last 20 minutes especially. And I don't mean that as a negative. It's just, the first hour and a bit feels kind of Terminator or something. And I felt like I'd seen it before, even though the spirit of it I liked. The last 20 minutes is kind of when Graham Skipper gets to do his thing. And it kind of, but when people say it has an Evil Dead feel, I don't think they're, don't elevate to feel like, oh, it's going to be Evil Dead. It's more like the feeling of a homemade original feeling film, which is fun. But the last 20 minutes are a blast. That's
and it's got that 80s vibe.
It does.
Is what
It has
I keep
80
hearing
vibes,
about it.
and watching the Q&A is pretty amusing because they really just did it on their own. Like the guy's like, I'd never touched a red camera before, and 2 days before we just started using it and learning one guy in the crew knew the functions, so he shot with it. So it wasn't what you expect, but no, it's really fun, and I know we're going to hopefully get the guys on the show, but it definitely had the thing about it that was kind of most and I don't usually use this with horror film. The thing that was really beautiful about it, no, was the way that they were old friends from school, went back to their hometown and shot it. And it wasn't an LA thing. That was the feeling that's like Evil Dead. It's like these guys who knew each other when they're in high school, who were big fans, went back, like slept on their parents' couches and had the entire crew on couches and floors. And all home cooking for the entire shoot. Had about 50 grand, I think. It was really less. It doesn't look like no, I think it was less. I think it was 30 something, and it really doesn't look like it. And they made a movie, and it's nice because of the regional feel to it. It definitely reminds you it's great. Anytime you can shoot regionally.
What was the region?
I believe they were Pennsylvania. No, I know. Rhode Island, meant to look like Maine. It's meant to look like Stephen King's Maine, but it wasn't. So. It's just the woods. It could have been, almost anywhere. But really fun film, and behind it afterwards was Demon Knight, which I hadn't seen on the big screen since it came out, and I always loved it. I always remember thinking Billy Zane was just so great in it, and Billy Zane is even better than he was when I was a kid. Billy Zane is like magic.
He is amazing in that.
I would let Billy Zane's voice into my pants.
Wow.
That's how smooth.
That's so smooth. Yeah.
I have always said I had a crush on Billy Zane from Demon Knight, but by the time he got to Titanic, I wasn't into him anymore.
No, totally. But that's not his fault. That's
Billy
casting.
Zane Demon Knight was hot as shit.
I think that's who Billy Zane
did that
really
bring you
is.
back to Billy Zane?
It totally did.
I looked him up as soon as I got home after the Demon Night. I was like, what is he doing? And looked him up on Twitter, and he's now like a fine artist who had a painting gallery in London happening, and he was tweeting funny things about art. Yeah.
Wow.
That's bizarre.
Kind of interesting. But Demon Knight's so fun. And the coolest thing was seeing Dick Miller, who you never see turn bad. It was fun when his character turns into the demon, because it's fun because you never really see.
I don't even remember that part. I know he was
Dick
in
Miller.
it.
Yeah,
but
it's good. Everyone turns evil pretty much, but Dick Miller is just kind of cool to see. He's a cool actor.
Yeah, and you're a big fan. So
yeah, exactly. So that was cool in terms of the events. The 12-hour thing.
Oh, well, just so people know,
lots of stuff.
Almost Human got picked up by IFC. So it
see
will
Midnight,
it will
yeah.
be released
Nice.
early next year.
I'm seeing it AFM next week.
Oh, cool!
So
Right on.
I'm
And
pretty
again,
psyched.
we're definitely gonna have those filmmakers on soon.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I went to the 12-hour thing, so I was pretty psyched about that. So
Oh, yeah,
I
you
was
were there
there
for the cartoons,
I was
yeah.
there for the cartoons, and we stuck
That was
around
fun.
for Tales from the Crypt, the original Amicus production. And then he showed one of my favorite shorts ever. They used to show it on HBO back in the 80s, and it was from the guy who made Short Circuit, and it was about killer tape.
Oh, that was
Oh,
cool.
wow.
And,
that was cool.
yeah.
It's from USC, I think, a printy bar.
Here's it. Oh well, tell everybody what this is, just in case they didn't listen last week.
Mike, what episode?
Yeah.
I wish we could remember, but
I think we mentioned it last week, but Mike Williamson.
on our film episode, we run something called Secret 16, where we show 16 millimeter films mostly secretly, and now we're starting to do a lot of them with Fango and Becca, where we can present it with the rights and stuff. It's fun, but this was like
Dark Man coming up.
Yeah,
Yep,
Dark Man
Dark
coming
Man.
out, which will be a lot of fun. But so he had a lot of stuff, but a couple of things we borrowed. Well, we showed Trick or Treat, the season's greetings.
That's awesome.
Because of the last show. But he showed this. Yeah, the film that she's explaining was. It was like just some guy who shows up for a job interview and this magnetic tape, like old school, because that literally physically stop animation.
Oh, I vaguely
chases them.
remember that.
They showed it on HBO all the time
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
was a kid. And I loved that element of HBO because they used to show shorts in between the movies. And there was
Yeah.
one called Slow Mo that I used to love, where it was like people had a disease that they could only move in slow motion.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was just these HBO shorts. They were just awesome films.
There was
They were
something
just so
called
cool.
The Creeper Machine. That was my favorite of the whole night.
Oh, it was so fun.
I don't know what it was, but it was my favorite movie of the whole night because it was just this weird, like it would go into each part of the Creeper Machine and show
Which
you
was
a
a
little story.
cardboard house.
It was kind of an infomercial for kids, like one
Yeah.
of those things, PSA almost, but it was just, a lot of random stuff. But there's some, and then we ended the night with, it was 12 hours of film on 60 mil. So it was kind of epic for Mike to have to project all that. But no, we ended with a couple really fun anthologies, Tales from the Dark Side, where we've
One of my
talked about
favorites.
before.
Yeah.
The James Remar one we talked about just before.
Yeah.
Being one of the
I mean, it's funny watching that now. I mean, I saw it in theaters. I talked about it on one of our previous episodes. And again, I think it's Creepshow 3. I mean,
Right.
it's pretty much the same people involved with that did it. But you look at it now, and you got like Steve Buscemi, Julianne Moore, Christian Slater, like so many recognizable faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost stronger than in some ways than Creepshow.
Yeah.
It's almost more fun than what Creepshow is now. But
Well,
I still love
I also
Creepshow.
love the wraparound story with
with
Deborah
the
Harry.
witch. And wait, am I right on that one?
Yeah, well, it's Deborah Harry's trying to cook this little
him.
boy.
Yeah, and he's
and he
reading
keeps
her
telling the stories,
Yeah.
which are the ones that we're seeing to kind of distract, like, to keep her from not putting her in the oven or whatever.
But it's interesting because when you think about horror anthologies, they usually don't, not many of them have emotional stories. Like something you really connect to on an emotional level. And that's probably why I remembered that James Ream. I wish I knew the name of the actual storyline, but that story where he has to make a promise never to reveal this creature he sees in an alleyway. Only to fall in love with someone, and I won't spoil the whole thing. But but it's a really great twist. And I remember
It's
that was
such a
like
beautiful story,
Yeah,
though.
it's a beautiful story, and it was one of the stories that when you watch it for the first time, especially if you're young and you don't see the twist coming, you're kind of floored by it.
Yeah.
But it held up great. And then we followed with something I've never wanted to see.
Oh my God, I know what you're going to say.
I know. I never wanted to see this movie. I avoided it for years because I thought it was Snoop Dogg's movie. I'm just not a gangster guy. And that was Tales from the Hood, which was really amazing.
Yeah, it's
awesome.
actually
Like
fun.
it's really
No,
good.
Tales from
It's even more than fun. It's more like it's like a real movie. Like it has a lot
That's
of
great.
themes and like really intense kind of political and racial.
Yeah.
It's like a real movie, and so I was kind of shocked by it.
It never got a very good DVD release.
Yeah,
if
I
I
don't know.
remember correctly, it's
Spike Lee produced it.
it's a little hard to find that.
It did come out, but it's out of print now.
It's out of print because I know that it's a little pricey now.
Yeah, there's from what I understand, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but because I know one of the producers fairly well, and I'm pretty sure there's a rights issue with it. However, if you're listening to this, it is on Netflix Instant. I'm pretty sure that's the way I watched it recently, a couple months ago. So
yeah, it was cool.
yeah, that's a fun one.
That was a lot of fun. So yeah, it was a fun night, and there was not many people. I think me and Mike might have been the only two who survived the whole thing. Though.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Wow.
what was
Emma was
attendance
there
like?
a lot. There were some people who came in. And attendance was mixed in the middle. It was pretty tough in the middle. It was getting tired. I mean, also it was coming at the end of Halloween. We're all getting kind of burned out.
Yeah.
In general, I mean, I'm really even today. I'm still kind of burned out. So. But then I went to a midnight movie last night too. So
Oh, damn.
I don't want to hear it. I sat at Comikaze for 12
there
hours
you go.
every day for the past
That's fair.
3 days.
Must have been rough. What was Comikaze like?
So Comikaze was really good. We've been, Fango's been doing Comikaze for 3 years now, and it's only been around for 3 years now. So the first year when Fango did it, it was really small. It was really tiny. And Fango had debated doing it again. And then we did it again last year just because we were able to split our booth with Dr. Shroud, which is a cartoon, and I'm really good friends with the animator. Rob Feldman, he works for Fango. So we were like, you know what, let's go together on a booth and split it. So we went back last year, and last year was much bigger, and we did really, really well, like selling stuff. And so then this year we decided to go again. And we got lucky this year because the booths, they're kind of like these duo setups. And so our duo was Robert Rhyme from Girls and Corpses. So we had fun with him the whole time. And then right behind us was the FEARnet guys. So like cool. Gavin and everybody. And Troma was right behind us. So we threw stuff at Megan the whole time. And it was, it was a good group to be around. And we did really well this year. I spent most of the time at the booth. I did a couple of panels, but I didn't get to do like any of the cool events or panels or anything like that other than the ones I was on. But even just being at the booth was awesome.
You didn't see Bruce Campbell lie?
I didn't.
Have you heard about this lie?
I mean, lie.
Remember what broke here when I told everyone that Army of Darkness weeks ago,
and that we put it up on,
and it did turn out to be a news break. Sorry, Brian. It did turn out that I was one of the first person to hear that, weirdly enough. But then it broke as a normal news story.
Yep.
And then at Comikaze, Bruce Campbell, even Freddy Alvarez went online recently and said, "Yep, I'm not doing Evil Dead." Blah blah blah. And then as of 2 days ago. Apparently Bruce Campbell at this convention's go, "Oh, that's all just an internet rumor. There's no Army of Darkness 2. That's ridiculous." This is like he was standing next to Freddy when Freddy was telling everyone. So who the hell knows now? But everyone,
I think Bruce is just messing with us.
Yeah, I think he's probably trying to lower expectations until script is ready. He's probably sick of it. Yeah, but who knows? Either way, it seems like they are kind of fucking around with everyone. But
I don't think Bruce wants to make that movie. To be honest,
really?
I think he's at that age where he just doesn't want to be Ash anymore.
Him being the star of a Sam Raimi film, I think he would want to be.
Yeah,
whatever it is. I think
true.
Working with Sam on a big budget, and they're talking $30 million.
Whoa.
For a film like that, that's a pretty big budget.
I was on a panel and somebody referred to Army of Darkness as being a micro budget film, and I was like, guys, it was still a studio pick.
Yeah, it was a bomb at the time, unfortunately, but wow,
it was still a big budget. But I hung at the booth the whole time. I met a lot of celebrities at the booth, though. I met Richard Simmons.
Oh, wow. I saw that picture of you. It's disturbing.
It
but
was
awesome.
completely disturbing, but it was so cool to meet him.
What the hell was he doing there?
He was just walking around. He wasn't even there as a celebrity. He was just like, I'm just a big comic book fan. So he was just walking around. But I mean, he was dressed like Richard Simmons. He had on this like pink sequined like lycra tank top and these pants with gumballs all over them. Huh. And so he came by the Fango booth and I was like, "Oh my God, you're Richard Simmons. Can I take a picture with you?" And he said, "Sure." So I got one. And then I also met Sebastian Bach, the lead singer.
He's a huge comic fan.
Yeah. And so actually here I have my picture.
You take a picture? I remember, maybe it was like on Howard Stern or something. Or I remember he did an interview. He's such a big comic fan that the one thing in his house that's in like a fireproof case is his comics.
This
that's Skid Row, right?
Yeah, lead singer is Skid Row. That's me with some female.
And you and Michael Shannon.
Yes.
He literally looks like Michael Shannon and Anthony Michael Hall with long hair.
Yeah.
That's what he looks like.
So, but he was walking around. He's a huge Fango fan, so he was all about visiting us. And then I met the one that I was actually the most excited about. I met the guy who wrote Unicorn Tales, which I know you guys don't understand because you weren't a girl in the 80s.
Definitely not. We're both nodding now.
Actually. One of us was a girl in the 80s.
All of the females listening to this, okay, I know BJ's listening. So BJ, I guarantee, will know this. Unicorn Tales was this cartoon that came out in the 80s. And everybody, I guess all the guys across the world looked at it and said unicorn. Or I'm sorry, The Last Unicorn.
Oh, The Last Unicorn.
The Last Unicorn. Sorry, not Unicorn Tales. The Last Unicorn. And so every female in the 80s watched this one. And it's really scary. I have to say, it's got skeletons and harpies and people die. And it's pretty... Herpes. Lots of herpes. Harpies.
Oh, okay. Good. I really believed you. It's like unicorn with herpes is hard enough to find.
Got to teach kids somehow.
Yeah.
But... no, it came out in the 80s and it was kind of just The Last Unicorn was the film of my childhood. And I mean, it's really got scary moments to it and it's not a happy ending at all. It's really quite sad. But I loved it. And the guy who wrote it was there. And so I met him and
How did you know it was the guy that wrote it?
Because he was there because he wrote The Last Unicorn.
Oh, like he was a guest.
Yeah, he was a
okay,
guest.
all right, that makes-
Is
like
Peter
A
Beagle.
t-shirt.
it would have been so much better if he just came up to Tim and you're like, oh my God, you're
You
the
wrote
writer.
The Last Unicorn.
right.
What the hell? No, and he was there and he was signing like copies of the books. And they're taking it on a tour across the U.S. now, showing a 35 millimeter print. It'll be in Los Angeles
Wow.
in March.
You know, a long time ago, like 10 years ago, I think Ridley Scott or someone like that was working on a live adaptation of that film.
Really?
Like a real one. But it would make sense because he did Legend, right?
That it would have
It
to
was
be
somebody
like
like him, and it was on the cards for a couple years. I kept seeing it in development.
wow.
But
It would have to be, I would assume, crazy CG'd because it has like 50-foot skeletons and there's a red bull who's constantly on fire. Not to mention the whole unicorn thing.
Terry Gilliam
but-
could have done it.
Yeah, no
There you
doubt.
Time Bandit's so good.
Henson back in the day, man.
Yeah.
But so I was so excited to meet him, and it was kind of this weird moment where I was standing there with him, and I was still walking around with Sebastian Bach, so he was with me, and I'm hanging out with Mr. Beagle, who wrote Last Unicorn. And I'm holding my daughter, and she pukes in the middle of the circle.
Nice.
And so then I had to hand
Kill her.
her off
Oh.
and run back and get a towel. No, I threw her down and ran away.
You sacrificed her to the man who made the last unicorn. I give unto you last unicorn.
No, he actually was so kind of enamored by how upset or not enamored, but he was amused by how upset I was that she had puked on his shoe, that he signed a free copy of his book for her.
Oh, nice.
And I think it actually says like, thank you, I'm sorry you puked on my shoe or something like that.
One day that's going to be a good story
Something
for
to
Marnie.
grow into that.
Yeah, he threw up on his shoe, Marnie. It was good times. So, but yeah, Comikaze, not so much horror though. I do have to say they did have an Elvira like art show going on, featuring Tim Polecat, which I didn't know he was an artist, but he had some really cool art in it.
That's cool. Yeah, conventions are funny things.
Yeah.
It was long,
an
and
understatement.
we've got 35 years of horror coming up in
Terror.
Halloween.
35
Years of
Terror.
Terror. Thank you.
The
2
Halloween
weeks.
one. Yeah, it's November 15th through the 17th here.
I got that one too. So
And Tom Atkins will be here on our show.
Oh my God.
I'm hoping.
You're hoping.
he's
You're just
listening,
you're
'cause
projecting.
That would be a pretty
I'm
awesome show.
I'm moderating
We
his
could try.
panel.
Yeah, let's get Tom Atkins
Hey now. Yeah, we got to work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, two events I wanted to bring up really quickly, and they're both Halloween themed. I managed to make it over to the Trick or Treat
Nice.
event at the Egyptian after Michael's on here, and I love how coy he was being when we asked him about the sequel stuff.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it was amazing. The Egyptian has got this, I don't know, this whole walkway, like kind of like a patio before you walk
Yeah.
in, and they had it completely trick or treated out, like literally, like giant ghosts, and there was a whole corner of just candy where you grab a bag and fill up with candy and stuff
cool.
like that.
What?
Free
Oh
popcorn,
my
free
gosh.
drinks, pictures with Sam, some of the props from the movie. It was really great. And the movie played really, really well to the big screen. I watch it once a year. It was a lot of fun. I was with somebody that had not seen it before, so she really got into it and appreciated it. And then they came out and did the Q&A, and the first thing, Seth Green was the one that was moderating it. So the first thing they did was they brought out a birthday cake because it was Doherty's birthday. That it was like a Sam cake. And then into a few minutes into the Q&A, Sam came out, a guy in a Sam costume, and walked over and handed what looked like a birthday card to Doherty. And he opened it up and smiled, and everybody was just kind of quiet. And he turned it around and it said, "Please make a sequel." And everyone just kind of started cheering. And he's like, "Well, it's not up to me. It's up to Legendary Pictures. And Thomas Tell from Legendary is here." So he stood up in the audience, Thomas Tell, and he's like, "How can I say no to Sam? Fine, let's make a sequel." And then right behind them, the screen just put up the Trick or Treat 2 logo. And everyone was like, "Wait, are they messing with us? Is this legit?"
That is so like World Wrestling Federation,
Yeah,
where
it was
it's like
totally-
this permanently choreographed
Yeah.
stunt.
Well, I mean, I think it was the whole deal, his whole little press thing. Everything was all leading up to that moment, which, is good showmanship. So,
Yeah. I think the movies are missing that,
So,
to be honest.
So it's a lot of fun. And I mean, immediately after, there was an interview with Entertainment Weekly about the sequel. And it's still, I mean, I'm sure he's been thinking about it for a long time, and it's probably a ways off. But, it was interesting seeing the idea of him like, well, we already did, witches and werewolves and this. He's like, there's plenty of other monsters that we can tie Sam into. So
An origin story, they're
yeah.
saying.
So
That's
I'm
cool.
excited about that. That should be cool.
Nice.
And then the other thing I caught, which I thought was interesting, was the New Beverly did a midnight screening hosted by Brian Collins of Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers.
Oh, this will tie in well with thing.
Yeah. But what's interesting about this was a really rare treat. They had a 35 millimeter print of the producer's cut. Mm-hmm. Now, in a time before internet, when people could talk about it, they made the movie, they finished it. I mean, completely finished, color corrected, scored, all that stuff. Showed it to test audiences, had a cast and crew screening, and test audiences hated it. So, and I think a big problem was, according to Dan Farron's, a screenwriter who was there, they took $1 million out of the budget to fix Hellraiser Bloodline, the fourth one.
Oh, weird.
So they kind of, so that went to that movie instead. Huh. So this is one of those movies that they actually went back and pretty much reshot the entire third act.
Oh, wow.
And added tons of gore scenes. So the theatrical cut is the one that's always been available. And they've always downplayed, oh no, there's no other version of it. But sure enough, this alternate version that doesn't really have gore in it and is a completely different third act started circulating as bootlegs. So there's tons of blurry versions with like time code out there and stuff. But yeah, Brian Collins announced that he was doing Halloween 6. And this is actually the funny thing. He told me that when it was the theatrical cut, they sold 4 tickets. Wow. That's it. Like they were having trouble selling it. And then Dan Farron's talked to Malik Akkad, the producer of the Halloween movies, and they had the 35 millimeter print from when they tested it. Never been shown in over 17 years. So they decided we're going to show the original producer's cut, and then 100 tickets sold overnight.
Does it still suck?
Well, here's it's an interesting experiment, but yes, that's the short answer.
And that's the show.
Neither is a good movie, but the producer's cut is definitely a little bit more in line with, I see what they were trying to do. It's just, it didn't seem like they had the right director that was going to execute it the way that it should.
Who was it? Do you remember?
I think his name was Joe Chappelle.
Okay.
And, I think it was his debut. I'm not really sure. But like Dan Farron's, we had him on the show for the Friday thing. He's a diehard fan. He wrote what he thought would be like the ultimate Halloween movie. I mean, the villain of it, his choice was, Christopher Lee. Because it's like, oh my God, if we had Christopher Lee and Donald Pleasance and it turned out to be his last movie, and the studio shot that down. So they got the guy from Lethal Weapon instead. So it was a battle the entire time. And then when they went and reshot it, I mean, one of the main things I noticed is the score, because this original cut uses way more of Carpenter's score. And that's the funny thing is, even if it's bad, Carpenter's score makes it kind of like, you're still with it.
It's
you're
watchable.
Like, all right, it's watchable. Whereas the theatrical's got like the score done in like heavy metal guitars and stuff. You're like, oh, this is cheesy.
Like the
terrible.
time,
Yeah. But it was fascinating. And if anything, because it ended up being a sold out show, I'm hoping that will, whoever the powers that be in charge of it will now take seriously releasing this version. It's not good, but it's the same. I equate it to The Exorcist, the Paul Schrader one and the Rennie Harlan one.
Right.
I don't think either of those are good movies either.
Right, but one of them's a little more tied to character. And
exactly. And this is the same exact thing. I feel like both versions deserve to be out there.
Why does, and this is one of my things I watched on Halloween night, or the night before was Halloween 4 and 5 back to back, because I hadn't seen those two in a long time. And I don't think they're amazing. They're very just typical slasher films.
4 and 5?
Yeah, but what I would say is that Danielle's really, really good in 5.
Yeah.
Like 4, she's good. 5, she's really good. I mean, for a kid actor to hit like that kind of character, it's really impressive. 4 has some really cool the lighting in the house is great, but they are very typical slasher movies, whereas there's something about the first, 2 that are joined, and then the third film is just unique on all its ways. So I had kind of a weird Halloween where it's like I watched those two and kind of was like, I'm watching it and enjoying it in a way, but also not feeling kind of what it doesn't get me passionate about horror anymore. And same then Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare came on TV, and I always remember everyone always says it's the worst film ever, and I'm like,
I don't know. I didn't remember that one.
I thought it was
have you seen it in a while?
Yeah, I haven't. I have to be honest.
You're also a big Twin Peaks fan, and they purposely wanted a Twin Peaks influence on that movie.
I could see that because I liked Freddy's Dead. That's the one where it's in 3D, the first 3D movie I ever saw. I was in like 6th grade when it came out, and Mom let me go see it by myself, and I saw it in 3D.
Only the last 15 minutes, which is kind of a joke.
And there was and they kept saying, they were like, when she puts on her glasses, put on your glasses.
Yeah. I was wearing it the whole time. And I was like, what the hell's going on?
Because that's the one that had the deaf kid and had the ear gag in it. Is
which
that
is
right?
a good kill.
And the video game kid.
I'll tell you what's good about it.
And Lisa Zane, Billy Zane's sister.
She's really good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what's good. The first 5 minutes, that's why I watched it. I turned it on. It was on TV. The first 10 minutes, great. Like he's flying, he's crashing in a plane, and then it turns into a house, and they crash. I'm like, this is pretty cool. And then
when he shows up, though, it's as the Wicked Witch. It's terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And the worst crime against cinema. Like literally, it should be put away and locked away, is Tom Arnold, Roseanne Barr cameo. There's one thing to have like celebrity cameos when they're in vogue, but if that tone of that scene that they're a cameo in is so different than the rest of the movie, which that scene is, it felt like I was just like, that you should be shot. Like the director should be put away.
I don't even remember their
Take
cameo.
it easy.
So luckily, she made Tank Girl, which is awesome.
Oh, okay, so
the
she's
same
forgiven?
director who then went on to make Tank
Rachel
Girl.
Talalay.
Tank Girl
Yeah.
is a good movie. It's a fun movie.
I remember
Freddy's-
liking the element of the town, though, because they go back to the town and the town doesn't have kids. Am I thinking of the right one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, and the town
some
doesn't have
interesting
kids,
things.
but they're all kind of crazy. Everybody's crazy from it. And I remember really
I felt like
liking
it was
that element.
a tonal mistake. Like I
It's-
felt like it wasn't so much the story as the tone of the whole way it was put together. Probably the director side of things just didn't kind of.
Well, you know, it's kind of a parallel with Jason Goes to Hell, where they just try to do something radically different.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem with Freddy's Dead, though, because I remember doing a marathon when the remake came out with Lawrence from FEARnet. By the time you get to 6, which is Freddy's Dead, as soon as he shows up as the witch, it officially has become the scary movie of the Nightmare series, but within the series, because it's all camp, it's all a joke on purpose, and we're in on it.
Now, what
so
the TV
that's the
series
frustrating
was
thing.
after that or before that?
No, the TV
before
series was
that.
around 3 and 4.
Because that's what it felt like. It felt like it was just another couple installations of the TV show.
Yeah, no, it was way, the TV show was way before that.
That's what it felt like.
I will say, if you've never seen it before, including our listeners, Freddy's Dead does have probably the best teaser trailer of all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I remember being so excited for that movie. And I'll post it on our Facebook page, but it's unfortunately doesn't deliver the movie that I hoped it would.
It has some crazy animation at the end. I mean, the 3D stuff at the end is bizarre.
It's very
It's got
bizarre.
like all the
Weird
weird
fish,
little
yeah.
fishy heads
It's
swimming
weird.
around. They
It's
look
a
like
weird movie.
sperm.
But it wasn't, it wasn't as fun. But yeah, Tom Arnold, Roseanne Barr, don't do it. Don't do funny cameos in your movies.
The Johnny Depp cameo is pretty amazing, though. Did you see that?
I don't remember him doing a cameo.
There's a part where the character Spencer Breckenmeyer is getting really high and he's watching TV, and Johnny Depp shows up with "This is your brain on drugs," the
I do
old ad
remember
where
that.
he cracks the
Okay.
egg, and then Freddy comes out and like smacks him, and he's like, "What's he on? It looks like a frying pan." It ends to me.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
his
Yeah,
cameo
that's
is really fun, but that's about it.
Nice.
I don't know who Johnny Depp is, so I didn't notice.
He's a pirate guy, you know.
Oh,
Well, I watched a couple of films during the week break.
Hit me with him.
So I watched Body Bags. I went back, and since Scream Factory did that snazzy new release, I went back and watched it. I enjoyed all of the stories just as much as I ever did, but the wraparound sucks.
I don't think I've ever seen this movie, Body Bags.
Body Bags, really. It's John Carpenter does the wraparound.
he's basically the crypt keeper.
The Crypt, yeah.
And I think he's really good. It just isn't. It's just like, it's very TV.
It is.
It's not like a movie.
Wasn't it
like-
made for TV? Though?
Yeah,
Is that
the
what it
idea was a Showtime. I watched the documentary thing, and it sounded like they were going for a series. And John, it's just insane. He's being interviewed about it. And they want to do a TV in Canada, and I'm just like, and then I looked at the money. I was like, eh. I mean, basically, he wasn't going to get paid enough, so I was like, I'm not going to do it. So, which I thought was pretty funny. But
Typical Carpenter.
The stories are good. I definitely enjoyed them. There's one with Deborah Harry in it called Hair that I really liked.
After I borrowed it from her, and Stacey Keach is next to Warren Oates is my other favorite, one of my favorite actors.
Yeah.
I think is maybe my favorite anthology entry in the history of anthology. Is so funny.
It's
Wow.
Like
fun.
Stacey
Okay.
Keach gives one of the best comic performances. It's not horror at all. It's just like basically a guy who's worried about his receding hairline. His hair starts to grow and grow and grow. But Stacey Keach is just so good at just leaving it all out on the table.
Yeah.
And he said he really went through that himself. Like he said in real life, he was really worried about that when he was a young actor, and his parents would make him wear a toupee in real life. And it wasn't until he was doing Shakespeare in the Park. This is I think a story in the extra. He's doing Shakespeare in the Park, and the wind blew, and his toupee went off. And he just said after that, he's like, "Fuck this! I'm going to just be okay with being a bald dude." But it's really good. The first one's really solid. Like the first one's a
gas
solid
station.
thriller. It's nothing new. And then the last one's the intense one with Mark Hamill that Tobe Hooper came on to do. So I think it's a cool anthology. I really think it was one of the most fun things I'd watched lately.
Yeah.
Like I remember borrowing up you guys. My memories weren't that great of it when I was young. Started on VHS and I was like, it's all right. But no, watching it, I had a lot of fun. I think people are going to have fun rediscovering it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It's not a classic, but it's the Stacey Keach thing is kind of classic.
Yeah. I love that Scream Factory's kind of giving us these Carpenter nuggets, to appreciate it. So.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then on Halloween night, Dave and I wanted to watch something that we'd never seen before. So we had to go through like all of our horror films and try to pick out one that we'd actually never seen before, but probably should have. So we watched Feast, which I had never sat down and watched before. And we made it like halfway through before I turned it off.
Get out of here. I love Feast. Oh. The first one, right?
Yeah. Okay. It had its
No, it was number
moments.
3. They were watching 3.
Why?
3.
You never
we started
know.
with 3. No, it was the first one.
I think you have to watch Project Greenlight to get to that.
Okay.
I watched Project Greenlight. To me, he was a folk hero. By the end of it, Gallagher was like a hero. Like he was like this guy conquering dragons of Hollywood. And then it was weird. Then later on, that we all know him now. But it's weird. At that time, I was like amazed that this guy from nowhere could get to make a movie.
See, I never saw Planet. What's the name of the show again? Project Greenlight.
Project Greenlight.
I never saw the show because I think Feast is like my most favorite, like my most fun movie since Evil Dead 2.
Wow,
and the reason being is because
really?
I didn't watch Project Greenlight. I didn't know anything about it. I was at a Fango show in New York. And John came out and showed the first 5 minutes, which is this hilarious
The first 5
breakdown
minutes is great.
of all the characters.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this
so
is
good.
awesome. And it's all these great character actors that I love. But yeah, I love the movie. It's great.
I don't know.
But maybe you had to get through it all to.
Maybe we need to go back and try to get through the last half an hour.
It's a great audience picture too. I mean, I saw it for that midnight that because they released it for one night midnight. And it was the first time ever that I saw a movie. And the next morning, like that Saturday or whatever, I got the promo DVD in the mail.
Oh, wow.
Because it was coming out like a week after their theatrical.
Yeah, he got pretty screwed by Miramax on that one because that was headed for a big release.
Yeah.
Because it was Project Greenlight. And at the last minute, it was when the Weinstein Company split and they decided to take that film with them. And then I guess they just didn't have the resources to do anything anymore for a while. And it died.
Yeah, I looked it up right after we watched it because I was wondering what the budget was because it did have awesome effects. And the gore was, of course, like super over the top, which was
like
the only
$1
thing.
million, wasn't it? Or something.
Yeah, Gary
but
Tunnelcliff,
it was it was actually a couple million. I think it was
part of the storyline. If you're, I mean, that's the thing that, and if people are listening to this, it doesn't matter what you think of Feast. That is one of the best things about filmmaking I've ever seen is that season of Project Greenlight. There's other seasons to me that I watched that were just like, they're all right. That season was incredible because John is this guy who you would never, watching what you're watching, you would never have chosen him. They chose him really just based on this little clip he had shot that was so well made and had a real kind of like point of view behind it. But then the person who John is not good at selling himself at all. And he's even worse today, but he's an awesome guy and he has a great eye. But
amazing. I mean, we were saying last week, he shot Sage Stallone's movie Vic.
Yeah.
He's a great DP.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think he's a good filmmaker. I think that he struggles in the studio system when people also fiddle with his stuff and everything since Feast seems to have been fiddled with, especially like Piranha 3DD and things like that, where they're not even, that's hardly even a movie to me.
Yeah. It was Vic. It was Dave and I seen Vic a couple weeks ago that made us go back and watch Feast. That's the one that we were like, holy shit, he made that. We've got to actually see this, this $2 million film that he made. But
it's worth watching Project Greenlight just because you'll learn so much about the industry. It's fascinating.
You got to give it another chance, Rebekah.
I got to go back and watch it.
But not so much
again.
the sequels. The sequels didn't do anything for me, really.
Did John direct those?
Feast 2 and 3.
Yeah, I don't.
I think they're made back to back, and they felt very much.
They did. It was the same thing with like that. Those two and Pulse 2 and 3.
Oh yeah. I did go back and watch Pulse a couple weekends ago, and it's not as bad as
the remake, the American one.
Because I had Kiro, however it's pronounced, the Korean version, the Japanese version. I had loved so much, but it's a completely different tone than they used in the remake. The Japanese version is much more about the suicide and feeling completely isolated and no hope and these just absolutely depressing tones, but very, very good. And it's just a very bleak movie. And then you watch the American version, and it's much more because it came out around that same time as, like I Know What You Did Last Summer. It was kind of like where J-horror and killing 20-somethings was the big thing.
Yeah.
So it all is about killing 20-something college kids. And, it becomes like the killer on the internet movie. But I went back and watched the remake, and it's not as bad as I remembered it.
Yeah, I remember it being pretty slick.
I recommend giving it a second glance. And then I also watched a Japanese film called Infection, which came out in, I want to say 2000, 2001, around that area. But I had only remembered it because everything in it was green. Like it had this very green glow to it because it was set in a hospital under the translucent lights. And Dave and I went back and watched it because he has really gotten into kind of infection movies lately for something that he's writing. And it has been amazing. I absolutely loved that one. So
Oh, really?
it really didn't have much plot, but it didn't need much plot. It was kind of like Evil Dead, where shit just starts going crazy. So
Did you see Wither yet?
No,
I really want to
I
watch
have
that.
Wither
She's got
on
Wither, and I'm
DVD.
dying to see it. I'm chomping at the bit for that one.
And-
It's like Scandinavian Evil Dead, everyone said.
Well, this is my big one. I received a DVD version of Blood on Satan's Claw today.
Oh.
Came in the mail
Yeah, that's
today.
the movie I want to see more than any movie.
Yep.
I've been wanting to see.
Wow.
No, I keep asking her, Mike Williamson. I've been asking Michael Williamson. I kept asking him to try to get Joe Dante's print, which he might be able to at some point. But yeah, I'm dying to see that film.
We imported it from England, so I now have a PAL DVD.
Yeah,
so
'cause
we
I
may
think-
just do a screening of it, just to, invite a few people over to watch.
Yeah, I think I learned about it from Joe Dante's Trailers from Hell. He did one about it and it just looked like, whoa, what's this movie? It looks really good.
Yeah, never released here in the U.S.
Yeah, and it was weird.
They show it occasionally on what was it? Screens or it was one of the networks, like the MGM Movie Network or something
Yeah, sometimes
like that.
you that is just amazing. If you keep your eye on MGM and stuff, that shit plays that isn't available anywhere.
Yeah.
Like including the Grindhouse releasing stuff. Like they're going to play the Massacre Mafia style one time around Christmas, but it still will never be available on DVD. And you're like, what the? You know?
And it just plays that's how Blood on Satan's Claw was. It played one time on the
And
MGM
perfect
network.
quality. MGM is always like HD, great quality. I saw an indie one that you saw a couple weeks ago, which I loved about 2 nights ago. Jugface. I loved it. It's a great
Jugface.
film.
I
gotta
gotta
see that.
So
I really
good.
recommend people VOD that one because it's really like, it's nice to, whenever again, we're talking about regional horror. This is definitely regional horror. It's also backwoods horror done in a way that's actually really interesting and built to own kind of mythos around these people. Larry Fessenden is great, but it's just the girl's great. I loved her face.
She is so amazing.
But it's by a lot of the same people as The Woman. A lot of the same producer, has a lot one of the same lead actors. Sean Bridges plays the dad and The Woman and is one of the main guys here. It's just an interesting film.
The lead girl is the teen girl who
She's
gets
the teen girl,
pregnant
that's
in
right.
The Woman, but
So,
she
yeah,
looks
it's-
completely different. I didn't even realize that until I looked it up.
But it's a good film. It's it's not like a big gore fest. There's a couple interesting scenes, but it's more just like the inevitability of the storyline's really good. And this has been so far an incredible year for indie. For me, indie horror this year, and so much good stuff still coming out. We have this. We're going into the Sacrament this weekend.
Yeah.
There's just it's really impressive. I'm happy. So I just love seeing films that make you go, A, kind of inspired to keep making your own films, and B, make you go, oh wow, there's a whole other world I can look at rather than the generic same rehash that horror often gets lumped with. Those straight to video. Don't want to diss Anchor Bay, but
No.
Yeah, of course.
Did you guys see Schism?
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah,
Okay.
we saw that one.
See, this is
and they're coming on the show.
Oh, good.
Are they?
Yeah, we had a phone call, but just not soon. They're waiting for a release
Oh, yeah.
date, but
Well,
there's been
I
a
love-
conversation about them wanting to come on.
I really
Good.
liked
I love
Schism.
Adam
Yeah.
and Chase.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that'd be great to have them on. Yeah.
So that'll happen. I want to make sure we see the film first.
Yeah.
Also, saw
two of
Pacific
us
Rim.
have.
Did you see Pacific Rim?
Yeah, I loved it.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Nice.
Yeah. I didn't feel much, but I liked it.
It was far better than I ever anticipated it could have been.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, Guillermo did a great job.
yeah.
It's always hard. Like, you always want to feel something. It's like the characters running around. It's way better than Transformers.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And with the big stuff, and there was some really cool stuff, but I don't know if I needed a sequel. I've heard there's going to be a sequel. I don't know. If I need it. But it was cool. It was a cool movie.
It was what I remember Hollywood blockbusters being like when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think
I was
that's
like,
right.
oh, that was satisfying. You
Yeah.
know, whereas most Hollywood stuff now over the summer just feels like Transformers. Like there's
Right.
nothing there. It's just vacant.
You do start questioning, did the movies change or did I change? The whole, because I watched
Yeah.
Jugface right after it, and I love Jugface, but it's made for like what, a 100th of the budget.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe you change when you just want movies that are a little smaller or something.
Maybe.
I don't know. Or the blockbusters got more Hollywood.
I'm pretty sure the Transformers movies suck.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
not
no,
us.
I
choosing.
will say it's just the Transformer movies. But no, I watched This Is the End.
Oh, yeah.
And Dave and I were wondering the same thing because we liked the beginning part.
Yeah,
but
the first 20 minutes is really
the first
good.
20 minutes, amazing.
Really, like one of the best satires of Hollywood I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Michael Cera stuff is
so
gold.
funny.
Like really good.
It's just
But yeah, then it
and
just
so
becomes
true.
the same old thing.
But yeah, and then after about an hour was
Yeah.
when the premise really started wearing thin, and then we were so bored, and we were just like, man,
Same old
and-
thing. That's when it became a horror movie. They threw Exorcist stuff in
I
there.
know, I know, and
Yeah,
the
it's-
guy from Oh my gosh, his name just escaped me.
Eastbound and Down.
Eastbound and Down, thank you. Was absolutely hilarious.
Kenny fucking Powers.
Yeah. And, but I mean, there were so many celebrity cameos. And I mean, like the Channing Tatum stuff, it was funny, but it wore thin on me. And after like an hour, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm done with this movie. And it was still going for another hour.
Yeah, wow. I think at the halfway is when you have to be a fan of the other films by these people.
Mm-hmm. See, but did you see it theatrically or at home?
I saw it at home recently.
See, because I saw it theatrically, and I mean, with a packed house,
right.
Everyone was just laughing from start to finish.
Yeah,
I could see getting bored at home, though.
It was just me. David already gone to bed. It was just me up late, sitting on the edge of the bed, trying to get through it. And by about an hour, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm done.
Every cameo, like when you're watching at home, you're like, oh, yeah, that's cool. That's funny. But like in the theaters, other people around you get so excited, like, oh my God, it's Channing Tatum. So, you kind of like are still high on energy.
Yeah.
Man, Michael Cera did kick ass in that. But,
I usually don't like him. But,
yeah.
But
no,
man,
he was hilarious.
I hope that's what he's really like.
Should I tell you my story from last night?
Yes, tell the story from last night.
Okay, so I've been wanting to see as Becca can attest, I've wanted to see The Visitor literally for like, I don't know, 8 years, but I've resisted. She's had the VHS. She's like, I've got the VHS right here.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I didn't know I was ever going to get to see it, but I just wanted to see it like in the best possible format. And then recently, Alamo Drafthouse decided they're releasing a new version, new print or DCP of this film that I'd always heard about, mostly because of the cameos that Sam Peckinpah's in it, and director John Huston has a major role in it. And I've basically always heard it's one of the weirdest films ever made. Mm-hmm. It's one of the most batshit fucking crazy movies that exists in the history of cinema. It even makes Jodorowsky's stuff.
I have it on VHS if you want to borrow it. It's not the greatest quality.
Yeah, Jodorowsky's stuff has a real like plan to it, even though it seems like, oh, that's crazy. This doesn't have that plan. So anyway, I knew very little though going in. I've kind of kept it that way, except Lance Henriksen's really good in it. It has some of the craziest scenes, but it also has these amazing sequences of like just great filmmaking followed by absurd ones that don't make any sense and are terrible. So it's like one of those weird, totally flawed, somewhere between the worst film you've seen and a masterpiece, which there really aren't a lot of films that genuinely are like that. Yeah, people like to say they are, but anyway. So the opening, I'm only going to say recount the story because probably a lot of you will never get to hear it because the guy who runs the creative at Alamo Drafthouse, Evan Husney, he introed it, and so basically him and Jason Eisner, who was there too, from the director of Hobo with the Shotgun. They're both there, and I think he's part of the rediscovery. And they got up and said, this is the craziest movie you'll ever see. Like, this is really the most insane, like, how this movie would have gone made, because this is not a low-budget indie film. This looks like it had real money behind it, had some real stars in it. It's filmed in Georgia, Atlanta. I have a new theory that The Visitor got screened, and it created a signal that was the signal in the movie. The signal. And the signal drove everyone fucking crazy, and then they all became zombies in The Walking Dead. That in Georgia. Wow. That is my Georgian theory. It all starts with The Visitor and it ends with Walking Dead.
I love that.
Anyway,
that's a signal in the middle.
Has nothing to do with his story. Anyway, so the story's fun. Okay, so basically they happened to meet the writer the day before the screening. And they've been like obsessed by this movie for like 10 years. And they met the quote unquote writer, as you'll see. And they went up to him and they said, this movie's so fucking crazy. How does this movie exist? So the producer of this movie, whose idea was to make this movie, I can't remember his name, but he's famous for all the rip-off movies, Italian rip-offs. So if Jaws or whatever came, he would do the rip-offs. Oh. So I don't know what his name is, but
I did an interview with him because he did Grizzly too.
He might. He was a big deal. Like he made a lot of money by just ripping off Hollywood. Mm-hmm. So he's got this idea for this movie. He's got the storyline, the basic idea. He's hiring a screenwriter, and he pulls the screenwriter aside and he says, I just want to warn you, the director, he's pretty out there. He's going to try to go way out there. And your job as the writer, first-time screenwriter, is to rein him in. So when he wants the elephant to run through every scene, which is true, like scenes this director actually wanted like an elephant to run by, or there's some even crazier ones, you have to make that not happen. And the writer's like, okay, I guess, I'll rein in your crazy director. So the writer's feeling a lot of pressure for his first gig, 20-something-year-old guy. Basically what happens then, the writer finishes his first draft. So this is to answer how does a movie like this get made? The writer finishes his first draft. It's his first screenplay. He's got the entire thing done. He goes to meet the director, knocks on his door. The director opens and says, come in. He hands him the screenplay, and the director holds it in his hand, and he's just holding it, nothing, looking at the writer in the eye, and he just goes, I hate it. The writer just looks at him like doesn't know what to do, and he hasn't even opened it. He goes, I hate it. He walks to his window and he threw it out the window, and all the pages flew over like whatever the city they're in. Like,
oh my God.
Gone forever.
Was that his only copy? I hope not.
That was all.
This is the 80s. You typed everything.
This guy got a writing credit, and the director never opened the script. Threw it out the window. So nothing of his was in those. He then, the producer basically from that and a couple other things basically can't work with the director now and fires the director. That the night he goes home, this is how it all is explained. So the producer goes home after firing the director, and there's a man standing at his door with a gun. He puts it to his head and says, if you don't hire the director and give him absolute creative control, we will kill you.
Wow.
And the guy hired the director, and the director had absolute carte blanche to do anything he wanted and made that movie. That's how The Visitor happened. Like the best behind the scenes filmmaking story that could possibly. And this is all told by the writer who's like, the dude threw my script out a window. Like, he said he hated it before even. I mean, to me, that's like gold. Like,
that's pretty amazing. But wait, I'm confused. Is this director still alive?
Yeah, I've been Googling him.
I'll tell you his real name. His real name is Giulio Paradis, and his name in the film was called Michael Paradis because he had an American fake, and he was friends with people like John Huston and
Julia.
He acted in 8.5 by Fellini, so he had like a surrealist sensibility. But the writer, I think, is the one American name on there, I assume. But it was just like, it was such a great context for a movie because there's a lot of stories like that in music, especially around Phil Spector's work. So, when Phil Spector was accused of murder, a lot of people who followed his career weren't really surprised, because he had pulled out guns on the Ramones, he's like put the gun on the table and said, there's going to be strings in your next album. And he put, the gun went a long way. So anyway, I love that story, and I really think people are going to have a lot of fun with The Visitor because it's a crowd pleaser. It's not, I went with some people who didn't like it nearly as much as me. So I'm not going to, for me, it was just one of those movies that I knew I was going to think about for the rest of my life. There were scenes in there. I was like, I'm going to be thinking about that forever now.
And I have to go over the plot really quickly for everybody at home. Just an alien battles Christ is kind of the quickest way I could sum it up.
It's literally, it says on the poster, the new poster, but it's literally Close Encounters, Omen 2, Rosemary's Baby, and The Birds. And every one of those things comes into the plot, like literally. Like it's not like a blended up. It's like literally all 4 of those movies are in there. But it's done in a way that's just like so bizarre.
The director's still really alive, apparently.
Oh, really?
It's Giulio Paradisi, also known as Michael Paradise.
Well, and there are a lot of stories, like Christmas Evil we talked about on here before. There's a lot of stories where mob get involved. So it might not have been anything to do with the director. It might have been a loose connection with the director or somebody wanting him to get money. So I don't want to say that he's some sort of mobster, but I don't think it's that uncommon in a certain time that mob money and decisions. Well, the cool thing is if you watch Mulholland Drive by David Lynch, there's the whole subplot of that movie is you will cast this girl.
Yeah.
And that whole, I think there's something to this. Like, if you see me again, you're in deep trouble. You don't want to see me, the cowboy a third time and all that. I think that kind of echoes the storyline. So who knows? Maybe it's been cannibalized,
Yeah.
But, anything with big amounts of money. People always think, oh, it's Hollywood. But you think about it, it's like the bigger the amount of money, the more likely there's going to be some weird crazy corruption in there. But anyway, it was a really fun story. Really, really fun movie if you like kind of crazy movies.
Wow. And you said they're going to screen it again at the Cinefam
this weekend. So if you're listening
LA.
to this on Friday, then it'll be playing tonight, Saturday and Sunday, and then it's traveling the whole country doing kind of the midnight circuit.
Interesting. Yeah, I might have to try to catch this one.
And it's what a midnight movie should be because it will keep you awake because it's crazy. Like every few minutes you'll go like, oh my God, what the, it's that kind of thing. So yeah, it was really good. I really liked it.
Cool. I had 2 that I really wanted to talk about that I saw. Number one that's been getting a lot of quote unquote hype and press. I saw Grand Piano, the new movie with Elijah Wood.
Is that a horror? I didn't know anything about it.
I didn't know that was a horror.
I would classify it more as it's a horror in the same way that like a De Palma movie would be horror. Okay. It's more in the mystery thriller kind of vein.
Cool.
It's pretty good. It's pretty solid. I think it's I don't have the director's name handy, but it's the director's first movie. Really, really impressive. The very basic plot of it is, Elijah Wood is this very famous pianist who kind of retired. He was mentored by like this really crazy, like famous composer guy. And that guy died and he tried to perform one of his pieces and couldn't do it. So now he's like kind of retired. He's married to this very, very famous actress. And the whole like first act is him flying into, I don't know where the hell they are, Italy or whatever, flying out of the country to perform a concert. Like it's his first concert in 5 years. He's going to perform again, kind of get back out in the limelight, sits down to start playing. And a John Cusack, that's who it is, literally threatens him as he starts to play, saying, if you play one note wrong, I'm going to kill you. And then like the little red dot appears on his hand. Like it first starts on his notes, and then there's kind of instructions on how to put a little ear clip in and everything. And then it becomes an interesting thriller where it's like, you're going to keep playing and you're going to play it perfectly. Otherwise, I'm going to shoot you in front of all these people. I'm going to go and murder your wife who's watching in the stands.
Cusack's really become Mr. Crazy Balls lately.
Wow.
Like a lot of the roles he's been playing lately. Like he played the serial killer Robert.
Yes.
What's his name? Really bad. Like it wasn't a good film. Frozen Ground.
Yeah.
Pretty
I think that's the one. Yeah. Alex Winter's in it. It was nice to see him in front of the camera again. Yeah. He's the guy that like runs the theater or whatever. It's really good. It's a really good thriller. Once it gets going, it's really, really good. I don't know if I'm 100% satisfied with the way they wrap it up, because it's like one of those like simple idea, high concept. How do you maintain a guy playing a piano in front of the audience, And one of the things I watched it with a couple friends and we just they kept debating, like they work in the industry. So they're looking for they're like, where's the CG where we could see those aren't Elijah's hands, because he can't possibly play piano that well. And I'm like, are you sure? Maybe he rocks the shit out of the piano. I don't know.
Like Gary Oldman in Immortal Beloved learned it all for that role.
Really? See, that's fascinating.
Gary Oldman went all the way.
So grand piano. I think somebody picked it up, but I didn't take a note of it. But I got to say, I'm really impressed. The thing that's really impressive, I'm really impressed with Elijah Wood, and kind of like, I didn't realize, now we have mutual friends. I didn't realize how much of a genre advocate he was.
Oh yeah.
And I'm really, again, Maniac's one of my favorite of the year. I thought he did an amazing performance in that. He gives a great performance in this movie. And again, this one teeters on genre. And then, his company, Spectravision, it's like this production company that he's producing a lot of these type of films. A few months ago, I don't think I'm allowed to talk about this, but I'm going to anyway. Controversy. So one of the movies they produced is called, and this is a long title, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Is it Iranian?
It's a black and white Iranian movie with the director is Anna Lily Amirpour, and I think it's her first movie. It's an Iranian vampire western, and it's not in English. Several months back, I have a friend in the industry that is friends with them, and I went to see a very, 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 very rough cut of it. Oh, cool. And by rough cut, I mean it was like 2.5 hours long. Like they were trying to figure out how to cut 45 minutes out of this thing. But even at 2.5 hours long, it was a very low budget yet gorgeous, beautiful, interesting, unique vampire story. It reminded me in spirit to Let the Right One In. It's nothing like it, just so you know, but it's just tone. I was like, wow, this is like in the way that Let the Right One In is like, you see it and it's like, wow, this is a vampire story, and I never would have thought of a vampire story this way. Similar in this way, the setting. I mean, anytime anything takes place somewhere that, I think they shot it somewhere here in California, but I feel like they shot it locally, like in some desert.
You wouldn't get out of Iran with that movie.
But that's the thing. It looks like it's got that vibe to it. But anyway,
that's great. Like, I love that he's taking risks. Like, I met him during the Maniac thing, we interviewed him for Inside Horror, and I wasn't actually very excited to meet him. I wasn't very interested. And of all the people I've ever met, he was the one who was most interested behind the scenes to talk about horror. Like, we were in the back getting ready for the show. He was completely into the conversation. Awesome. Whereas most people are just like showing up like they're stars. Like,
and why haven't we had him on here yet?
I don't know. We should
get him for Spectravision rather than his. Yeah,
we'll have to talk to those mutual friends.
I think he's in Austin now, though, right? Lives in Austin.
I think so. But I mean, again, I think between Maniac, Grand Piano, and then This Girl Walks Home Alone.
Well, Toad Road,
and Toad Road coming up.
I'm looking forward to that one.
I'm just fascinated by all the stuff that he's doing. So that's pretty cool. The other movie I saw I wanted to bring up was something that my roommate turned me on to, and he's not a horror guy at all. But we were doing the Universal Monster movies, and then he's like, "Have you ever heard of The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires?"
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
Yes.
And I was like, no.
Shaw Brothers are brilliant.
Yeah, it's a Shaw Brother Hammer co-production, which I never heard of, with Peter Cushing as Van Helsing again, and he kicks ass when he's in that role. And it's like the craziest movie where this Chinese, what do I call him? Is he a samurai? I don't know. He's just some guy that finds Dracula. Dracula takes over his body, resurrects like these 6 like Chinese vampires, and they're pretty freaky looking. They got like
They are.
pretty creepy
It's masks.
Yeah, they got really weird, creepy masks.
Yeah.
And Van Helsing and his son and this super hot, like, chick that his son sort of shacks up with, they go to fight these 6 vampires. It's pretty batshit. I love it. I didn't, and apparently they've done a few movies, Hammer and Shaw Brothers.
Hammer and Shaw co-production, yeah.
Yeah, I think they did a few together, but this was the first. So
Legend of the something Golden Vampires, isn't that one? Legend of the something.
7 Golden
This is the Legend
like
of the
that.
7 Golden Vampires from
Okay.
1974. That's the one that I saw. Look it up. It's thoroughly entertaining.
Didn't they just drop a new trailer today, Hammer? I think Hammer
I
the
don't know,
Quiet
did they?
Ones. I think the trailer might have
Oh,
landed
cool.
today.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
It's
I
cool that they're
have,
making films again. Makes me happy.
I have some Hammer news I'm going to have to drop in a couple of weeks regarding Fangoria doing something that I need to talk to you about. All right.
Oh.
So, but I'll have some Hammer news in the next couple of weeks.
And I will have some Amicus news. I am bringing back Amicus.
I love Amicus. just
I'm going to
you.
resurrect Vincent Price, and we are all going to come. I wish that would be cool. I
On
do miss all
Shaw
those
Brothers.
titles, though.
Yeah, on Shaw Brothers. I was never a huge fan of kung fu movies, but my husband is like a diehard fan. Like he can recite all of the filmmakers and all of the different Bruce Lees. Like after Bruce Lee died, there's like 5 different fake Bruce Lees that emerged, like Bruce L.I., Bruce L.E.E.E., and spelled all different ways. And
Stoner.
he's very into these. So yeah,
Time to categorize all the labels, all the different martial arts.
he could write a book on Bruce exploitation, just the Bruce Lee movies. But anyway, so when we first started dating, he used to make me watch Shaw Brothers all the time, and it really took a long time for me to appreciate them. But I have grown to appreciate Shaw Brothers, and you should watch Boxer's Omen. It's by far the most batshit and by far my favorite.
Yeah,
It's very
Cinefamily did that
psychedelic.
last year, and I remember a lot of people talking about it. I didn't see it.
Yeah, Boxer's Omen and 8 Diagram Pole Fighter are
Boxer's
both
Omen. Okay.
excellent films. Boxer's Omen is really psychedelic and really just batshit, and you have no idea why they're doing half things. And the skeleton will turn into an alligator and eat a chicken, which makes him turn into a spider so he can throw telekinesis at people. It's just weird shit.
Wow.
But it's awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Should we do some?
Yeah, we've got questions.
We have some
Well,
questions from the
actually,
people.
we have a couple upcoming things that we got to talk about too, because you're going to AFI. What all are you seeing there?
Green Inferno by Eli Roth, I think is his name.
Who we saw at Goblin.
Yeah, I saw him at Goblin. I met him.
But he
Refer to a previous episode if you want to know what I thought about meeting him.
Did you meet him, or wait, did he meet you?
He didn't meet me. I met
He
him.
didn't meet you. Yeah,
I met.
He
I was
just-
introduced, but his eyes never actually
He
stopped.
looked through
He didn't
you.
make eye contact.
There's other
You're
famous
not
He
people.
was on
You're
his
not important
phone
enough.
texting.
But all of that is said, I am really looking forward to his movie. I actually have very high hopes. I think it's going to be a really cool, entertaining film. And so I can look past everything else because it doesn't matter.
I want to see it too, but I don't want to pay to see it.
I'll give you a free ticket.
Would you like to come with me?
Maybe.
I have free Fango passes.
The Sacrament's going to be good. Borgman, I think, is going to be badass. Borgman looks really good. Blue, what's the one by the Murder Party guys? Blue
Riot.
Oh, I didn't know that they had a movie
their
playing.
new
That's
film is
awesome.
playing.
Isn't it Blue Riot?
No, Blue. It's a word like something. Anyway, we'll look it up.
Yeah.
It's playing not in the midnight. It's playing in indie auteurs. But yeah, I'm seeing a bunch of stuff. A lot of films in the next week for AFI. And
No, the one at AFI that I'm excited about is Jodorowsky's Dune.
Yeah.
That's
It's
playing?
a documentary on Jodorowsky's
It won South
Dune.
by. No, it won Fantastic Fest. It won the best award. And I'd learned. I was such a big Jodorowsky fan growing up that I'd always heard so many stories because Salvador Dali was meant to be the one of the main characters. Pimp Floyd was going to do the soundtrack. Moebius did the art. So you grow up hearing the legend. So I don't know how they turn this into a full-length documentary, but apparently it just has a ton of heart and people, you walk out going, that would have been the greatest movie ever.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I can't
I'm
wait.
super psyched
Yeah, I'll be
for
going
it.
to that too. I'll see you there.
I will not be at that one. Dave's doing that one instead
okay.
of me because he's such a huge Jodorowsky fan. I couldn't take that away from him. So instead, I'm doing R100, which is this new kind of, it's either Korean or Japanese.
Korean bondage film.
Korean bondage film, that's it. So I'm doing that one. I'm doing, there's another one, Mobius, which looks really intense.
Oh, that's a new film by Kim Ki-duk, who won. He won Cannes a couple years ago. He makes very disturbing movies.
Yeah, so I'm reviewing that one. So I'm excited as can be about a super disturbing movie.
And
then
Sunday, Gore Zone world premiere at Jumpcut Yo.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask about that.
I'm super psyched.
High 8 is a lo-fi anthology, like with all these kind of like VHS, but with the guys who used the old equipment to make it, and it's all across America. Like they get all these old school straight to video kind of directors who all got together and made this thing. No one's seen it, no one has a clue. The poster's awesome, but I read about it in Gore Zone, and the director contacted me to show it even before, because he's a guy who comes to some of our screenings.
Nice.
So I have no idea what it's going to be like, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun because it's the first time it's ever been seen. So, so yeah, and it's fun that Gorzone's kind of like presenting a film. Like, it's kind of cool because Fango, it makes sense, but Gorzone's kind of been dormant for a while.
I was talking to Chris about that today. We'd love to start up like a regular Gorzone screening and make them more obscure and more extreme. Bloody
Moon, or the Bloody Moon, the film that Intervision released last year. It's meant to be the goriest film in the history of cinema. A German film. I've got it. I haven't watched it. I think it's the Bloody or the Black Moon.
The Bloody Moon.
Yeah, the Blood Moon.
I have to research that one.
It was Blue Ruin, by the way. The movie.
Blue Ruin. I said Blue
Blue
Riot.
Ruin.
Sorry, guys. And then the thing that I'm doing this coming week is I have American Film Market, which I wish you guys were coming to because they are showing some amazing stuff. For those of you guys who don't know at home, American Film Market is where film companies in the U.S., like film sales agents, will take their films to sell to international distributors. So films like Almost Human that already have been picked up by IFC in the U.S., they may not have international distribution yet. So they take their films and they screen it for private audiences to sell to international people. And Fango gets to go and we get to review all these films. But the cool thing is that within like a week time period, they play over, it's something like 300 horror films. So I get to see Witching and Bitching, which is the new Alex de Iglesias film. I'm seeing Dinge. DJINN, which is Toby Hooper's new film.
Well, see what you say.
I'm excited to see how it plays out here. I'm seeing Almost Human there. And if you just look over the list, it really is like a who's who of everything coming up next year.
That's cool.
So I'm super psyched. I get to see Wolf Creek 2.
Oh, wow.
I want to see that.
This is why I told you to get your stupid credentials in.
Why didn't you get me one? Why can't I go with you and I'll review something?
Because you can, but you need to get your press.
And she wanted me to send all this stuff to her.
She wants a damn link to your show.
Yeah, have you seen the trailer to Wolf Creek 2 yet?
I haven't.
Yeah.
That ain't an eye.
But there's so much stuff screening there that I am so psyched about. And I mean, these are just like a glance, but there's a whole bunch. There's one called The Scribbler that I have to go see for Fango. That looks cool. So I'm pretty psyched. There's some good stuff.
Is All Cheerleaders Die playing in any of these?
Yes, it is. All Cheerleaders Die is playing there.
That's Lucky McKee's remake of his own movie.
Chris Severson.
It is playing.
He's the guy that they both came up together, but Chris also did The Lost.
And then I met him before.
I Know Who Killed Me? And now they both did this movie together.
I really
like I Know Who Killed Me. I think it's a hilarious giallo.
Maybe I need to watch it again.
Another one that I'm super psyched about that I'm seeing there is called Vi. It's a remake of a 50s Russian film, VIY. It's a vampire film. The original one was made under communist Russia, and it was very much like anti-Christian, government. It was really good. And then this one is a 3D remake.
Oh, wow.
So
nice.
I'm super psyched to see it. So this should be fun. So I will have tons and tons of stuff to report on.
Nice. Two things I wanted to mention. The Battery, movie that we all love and have been talking about.
Screening at AFM.
Where's it playing? Not AFM.
But we have another week before that. But yes, it will be here.
Let's start building the hype up now.
Let's build the hype. Actually, hats off to Mr. Gardner. Unlike a lot of filmmakers who never send me shit when they say they're going to show their film, I got 3 Blu-rays in the mail today and like 50 little baseball cards, advertising cards for it.
Nice.
When are we having that gentleman on?
Whenever he can get to this coast. I mean, I had thought that if he could make it out, because he was looking into it, I was thinking that could have been our live Killer POV episode.
Oh, yeah, that would have been good.
And there's an open invitation, of course, if he does make it out here.
He's also one of the few filmmakers that actually listens to our show on a regular basis. So
I think we have a couple, but I like him.
But it really is my favorite indie of the year. And that's not just horror. I think it's just my favorite indie. It's just like...
What date is that?
It's, I believe, a Sunday of like the 18th or something. It's the middle of November.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about it on the next one to make sure we remind you.
Yeah, keep tabs and come and join us at the Jumpcut for that one. That one's going to be a lot of fun.
Wait, we're screening Battery at Jumpcut.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, you know what? I think it's the 17th or 18th. It's the same weekend that the Halloween convention's happening, but it's at night. So
nice. Yeah. Okay, cool.
So that's Saturday night.
I talked about that one on my panel at Comikaze.
Nice.
Somebody said best film you've seen in a long time, under $1 million, and I said Battery, hands down.
Best film you've seen under $10,000. The Battery, hand down.
Best film you've seen under
$7,000 budget. But and also it's playing Subspecies 2 the night before.
Why are you showing that?
Because the guy who runs that night, Strictly Splatter, he loves that film, and the guests are going to come. So
Really?
Wow.
Denise
said
Duff?
yes. Yeah, Denise Duff. And
She'll be there?
hopefully the director, Ted Nicolau.
Oh, man, then I might
like
have to
Ted
come.
Nicolau, yeah.
Yeah, I
I've never
used to
seen
have
any of the Subspecies films.
I used to have such a crush on
Denise
Denise Duff, as did every 12-year-old that went to Fangoria Weekend of Horrors in that era.
Yeah, Dave, my husband, loves the Subspecies series, and I never got into it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them.
It's
This will be
okay.
my first time.
I have the box set if you want
As
to
do I.
preview.
probably
And the
don't.
Blu-ray box. You probably don't.
I like TerraVision by Ted Nicolau, so I'm a fan of like the cartoony thing he did in that. But
Nice.
But yeah, let's do some questions. I want to hear from
Yeah,
other
yeah.
people. I want to hear
Yeah.
from the fans.
Here we go.
I know
All right.
some of them I wrote down.
Yeah. I got them all here on my phone.
Okay.
But, first up from BJ. Shout out to BJ. She always listens every week and
Oh,
supports
and there was a good
us.
tweet one, by the way. There's one on the tweet we should look at as well.
I think this is the tweet one, unless you got a tweet directly to you. But
No.
BJ's was, if you had to pick any Halloween tradition to remain year-round, what would it be? It's pretty good. And a tough one. Well, I do eat candy all year round. Somebody saw like a bucket of my little plastic pumpkin bucket filled with candy like a month ago. And they were like, "Oh, is that for Halloween?" And I'm like, "No, that's because I'm a grown up and I can have candy all year round if I want. It's not for anybody else. Screw the kids."
I will do that this one after. I guess I like the costume thing occasionally, but I mean, I don't know how you can really do it year round.
Yeah, I wouldn't exactly
It's too much pressure, probably.
go to the bank dressed as a pirate on
Yeah.
an idle Tuesday. So
And not in LA.
not in LA. Yeah.
Well, I guess watching horror movies is our thing anyway.
Yeah,
That's
it's kind
the
of a
tradition.
loaded question for our group because the whole joke, right, is that we're burned out
It's
by
always-
Halloween.
Yeah.
And,
Because we
after
double
you're
everything,
doing
but
it.
we do it all year round anyway.
I actually wouldn't want Halloween all year round because
Yeah.
it would be such a
It'd kill you.
workload for
Yeah,
all
you'd
of us.
die. Yeah.
It's kind of how I feel about pumpkin flavored things like pumpkin pie, pumpkin spice lattes, and all that. If we had them all year round, we'd probably be sick of it. But
Totally.
it's like once you September and you're like, oh my God, they've got pumpkin spice latte. I get all
have to have one.
excited.
That's how I am with Cadbury eggs. As soon as
Oh,
Easter
yeah.
rolls around, I will eat those things in excess. But by the time that like April hits, I'm really sick of Cadbury
Then
eggs.
you appreciate it when it comes around.
Oh my
again.
God, yeah, because then next March, I'm like, fuck yeah, Cadbury eggs.
It's like it's all about making something special. Like, because if we can have access to everything all the time, and that's one of the problems with streaming and on demand and everything's always available, it really does strip some of the power of that experience. Just like when you go to 35 million, you're like, whoa, I'm watching a movie right now. I'm in a theater. This is special. Go home, watch the same thing on streaming without any effort, and I can pause it and I can eat, cover myself in peanut butter or whatever. It's like, it doesn't have.
How did you
that
know how I
same-
watch movies already?
That would kill you.
That would
If
kill
I
me.
covered myself in banana, she would die because she can't eat peanut.
You're not coming over to watch movies at my place like that.
Yeah, that's
Oh my
kind of hot.
God.
But anyway, it's true. It's like I think it's cool that we keep these things special. So we don't want Halloween year round.
Yes. The question you were thinking of is Frank Farini on Twitter. He asks us, what would be your dream commentary track? Any director, living or dead, any horror film?
That's a
Which is a really great
That is a
question.
really good question. I need to think about that.
I know
one a
no matter
lot,
what, I
but-
know who the director would be. If we're talking horror, but I don't know which film. I'd definitely go Mario Bava.
Interesting.
But I don't know which
Ooh.
film because I've never seen Black Sabbath. And it's like one of the top movies. I did that 100 Time Out film, and there's four I hadn't seen. And Black Sabbath's the biggest one. I will see it if it plays in the theater. But I'm trying to think which film it would. I don't know which film of his, but I know I'd love to hear him talking about one of his movies for a whole 2 hours, because he's just one of the smartest filmmakers.
Yeah.
Wow.
But,
I'd go, you know what? I'd love to hear an Alfred Hitchcock commentary, and it'd have to be for Psycho. I mean, I know everything about
Yeah,
it,
that's a good
but
call.
it'd be fun to hear him in his droll voice.
And then I decided.
Yeah, and he'd probably he'd probably tell jokes through
He'd
the whole
probably,
thing.
really
Yeah.
dark.
Very witty, dark
Yeah.
jokes.
There were so many that have come out through the WB archives that I've been just ticked that they don't have the commentary track with them. But for me, I definitely Go Second Time Virgin was one that I wanted a commentary track on that it did not have. For those of you guys who haven't seen that, it's not one to watch if you're faint of heart.
It's not boring, but it is rapey.
It is rapey.
It's actually the most rapey film I've ever seen in my
Yeah,
life.
I have to agree too. But at the same time, it's incredibly beautiful. It is a Japanese exploitation director. This came out as a series. It kind of falls into like the pinky violence genre of Japanese films, which were very hyper sexualized violence that came out in the 70s and 80s. But the guy who directed this one, he spent way too much time studying Godard. So it's seriously,
pretty art
it's like
house.
watching a Godard make a rapey exploitation film.
It's a good film.
But
It's all set on a
so
roof.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's a cool movie.
Wow.
I love that out of the entire history of horror. You chose Go-Go. So you want to hear him defend himself or something?
No. I mean, because the same guy, he directed Ecstasy and the Angels, which Criterion has this beautiful release of, another kind of rapey Japanese exploitation film. I'm sorry, In the Realm of the Senses. He didn't do Ecstasy and the Angels. He did In the Realm of the Senses, and which is also Criterion. And so it's got, this beautiful commentary.
Oshima directed that one, yeah.
And but then you look at films like Go-Go Second Time Virgin, and there's nothing. But yeah, I think that those are the ones that I'm always most intrigued to listen to the commentary track by, because it's one thing if you can listen to how Steven Spielberg makes a movie or Alfred Hitchcock, but I'm always much more interested in the okay, well, we couldn't find an actress, so we had to pull this one off the street. Or I was listening to the commentary track of Driller Killer and just listening to Abel Ferreira talk about how the bums were real bums and that one tried to steal shit off the catering truck and things like that. It's
that's fun.
So
that's cool.
much more
Is
fascinating.
that the commentary where he walks out on it or something like that?
I don't even remember that.
That's what he told
That
Ferrara
sounds so
does.
like him.
Yeah. And you know what? I want to add one. I don't want to take back my Hitchcock one, but if I could make it happen, because I did the Psycho doc, I'd give anything to hear Perkins talk about Psycho 3. Anthony Perkins directing that movie. I mean, how amazing would it be to get his insight
it'd be interesting.
into how he approached that movie?
I would love to hear him talk about Edge of Sanity.
That would be interesting too.
Just because it's so out there. It's the one where it's like the Jekyll and Hyde story, but it's set
I think
in
we
this like...
mentioned that here before.
I talked about it before.
We have a couple times, yeah.
Pretty Poison's good too. That's another film he's in.
Pretty Poison.
A really good film.
He talks very loosely. I don't know if you guys have gotten to bless you. On Psycho Legacy's second disc, there's a full 45-minute panel with him, and he talks his whole history. So he talks about Pretty Poison, saying how he didn't agree with how to play the character with the director, but he did what the director said. And he even said, he's like, well, it wouldn't be your favorite movie if I did it the way I wanted to.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And he mentions that he was about to do Edge of Sanity in that panel, which is kind of interesting. What
else we got? Let's do a few questions.
We're over on Facebook now. Dominic Wanecki, I hope I said your name right, Dominic. He just wants to know what was the highlights of your Halloween season, and what upcoming movies are you most looking forward to?
We might have already answered those today.
I don't know, because the highlight? The highlight of my Halloween season, I mean, it's definitely more family oriented.
Yeah, totally.
Like taking Marnie trick-or-treating for the first time, because we went with Dash and they both dressed up as dragons and it was about the cutest damn thing. And there was
Dash, for those who don't know, is the son I spawned with a mortal woman of Earth.
And that was his first Halloween trick-or-treating.
Spawning.
Your first spawning as well. But
it was. Well, he had been on me like Marnie was, but this is the first time he was trick-or-treating. He ran up to every house and knocked and said thank you. It was cool.
And the cutest thing was he like Marnie can't walk yet, so he would go up and at a couple of houses he was like, my friend can't walk, can I have candy for her? And he would bring Marnie back candy. And it was like the cutest damn thing
and then
ever.
He got home and we stole all his candy. And we said, you get to keep 2 pieces. Goodbye, 50 tons of candy.
Dave and I, we apparently didn't buy enough candy. We bought like 6 bags, but because we decorated the house so much, we kept having people come. And we had trick-or-treaters up till like 10 o'clock at night when it was like thugs showing up at the door with like a book bag.
I was there with 3 like homeboys like wearing like just their hoodies with no hint of a costume and backpacks, just going trick-or-treat. Give us like, it was just like, what?
Their backpack was, we're going to egg your house if you don't give us
I didn't like
candy.
seeing that actually. That was
but those types of folks kept going till 10 o'clock. And so we ended up having to give out the candy Marnie had got because we didn't have any candy. And we were like, if we turn out the light, our tires are getting slashed or something.
Well, they're in a pretty predominant house, so they have to.
Yeah, it's a little flashy.
Yeah. Very colorful.
But that was probably the best part. And like in Burbank, some of the houses go kind of over the top. Not just mine. Like one woman built a maze in her front yard.
There's some good stuff out there
that we all went through, and some of the decorations were just amazing. And just getting able to see Marnie and Dash and Matt's kid Calliope was with us, and it was just,
because we did so many horror events. Leading up to the whole dressing up and all that, I don't care about that part of it.
You were like Vincent Van Gogh?
No, you know what? It was interesting. I showed up looking like Harry Dean, as Dave said, you're Harry Dean Stanton's entire filmography. Was his first line, because I had a cowboy hat and a cowboy shirt. And then then somebody else said something of Vincent Van Gogh, but then somebody like Jeff Farley posted on my thing a photo of Torgo from
Man of Santa Fe.
And I've seen that film so many times, didn't think about it, but even the photo that was taken of me,
it was
where I'm looking through a window, it's exact copy. So I wonder wonder if psychologically, subliminally, I was being Torgo, and I just didn't even know about it.
It was amazing.
It was kind of funny, but
probably
unintentional.
So that was kind of like, I did lots of cool shit during Halloween. I got to hang out with the Beyond Fest guys. I got to go to all these great screenings, Goblin. But, after everything, it was just kind of nice to go trick-or-treating with my friends and kid.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Highlight, I would say Universal Horror Nights. That was a lot of fun this year. I mean, it's always a highlight. That and Trick or Treat, to be honest. I had a great time at that Trick or Treat screening. John Holland is chiming in here. Hello, John. Thank you. You're pretty active on our Facebook, so we appreciate that. He says, I always enjoy hearing people's thoughts on the state of the genre. Actually, wait, hold on. Let me look at this. There's a lot here.
Why don't I do one in between?
Yeah.
I don't know who. Somebody asks if you can see most vile or disturbing film you've ever seen.
Yes.
What's his name? The guy who asked that question is somewhere down there. Most vile or disturbing? It's a very short one.
Oh, it's Michael Gilmore.
Michael Gilmore.
A good friend of mine.
I'm going to have to Google mine.
You have to Google the most vile film you've ever seen?
Men Behind the Sun. Yeah, it's about atrocities of World War I.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty brutal.
Yeah, it's funny what disturbs people. Like, you can watch, a Serbian film doesn't even quicken my pulse, to be honest, because it's cartoony in the depiction. So when something's cartoony, I can't be disturbed. But for me, it was that one, haven't seen it for so long and don't want to see it again, In a Glass Cage.
Oh yeah.
Spanish film, just like anything with like pedophilia or ex-Nazis. There's like certain things that kind of really turn me off. Pedophile ex-Nazis are one of them.
I don't see Nazi films never. Well, I guess it's
ex-Nazis,
like
not
ex-Nazis. In a Glass Cage definitely bothered me because it was done very seriously.
Yeah, it's a pretty, and it's well made. It's worth seeing if you're interested. But that was one of the ones that I remember leaving me a little. But it's hard to disturb. It's not that easy to disturb me, to be honest. The news disturbs me way more.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Like when I see those weird stories about this guy is a puppeteer from Florida and him and his co-Christian guy from church were planning on abducting and eating this child from their church, and you're like, what? Like and that happened like a few months ago, and you hear a news story like that, and you're like, oh, that's weirder than any subplot of a horror film, and it's real. So movies are
Nuclear Holocaust movies always bothered me. Like,
because that was a real concern.
After the Rain. And and I watched them all in the 80s when I was a kid.
So
those are the ones that kind of echoed with me as being like, really bad. There's After the Rain, Testament was one. That one was Steve Guttenberg, not quite so much.
Anything with Steve Guttenberg. But did you know Steve Guttenberg once plays a New Zealander called Laubo in a really bad 80s comedy, and he pretends he's a Kiwi? And so he has like big hair and a motorbike. He goes, I'm Lobo from New Zealand. And it's just the worst.
You sure that's not one of the Police Academy sequels?
No. It's in that same period. It's in that period, but it's pretty bad.
All right. Well, getting back to John's question, he had a lot of stuff to say. One of it was because you also asked about topics, and he says, maybe we can get into our individual backgrounds at some point.
Yeah, we'll do that at different.
We'll figure. We should come up with some kind of little survey that all three of us have to take on the show at some point. That might be fun.
Ooh, like a 20 questions quick fire.
Yeah. That would be a good idea. But he mentions a love of old radio dramas. Many of them were made into television shows and movies. Hitchcock's The Lodger is one that comes to mind. Do you have any favorite classic radio tales? I know it's not film, but it's storytelling. For me, I actually, and I regret I didn't get a chance to do it this last month, but last year I spent October on my commute back and forth to work listening to Larry Fessenden's radio show, Tales from Beyond the Pale. Fantastic. I love those. And I know there's a new season right now, which I have to buy. But those are my favorites. And I know that's kind of modern, but it's because, it's old is new again sometimes. And it's like, I hadn't heard that form of storytelling in so long. And sometimes when you're stuck on the road for an hour, you can really get wrapped up in a story like that.
And also why people listen to a lot of podcasts.
Exactly.
I think we've had quite a few people write to us saying they listen to us on the road. One of the guys, if you're listening, started being a trucker, he said.
Yeah.
And was driving long routes, and that's cool. I'm glad we can pass your time.
Yeah. I think it was Steve. I think that was his name.
And I have to say, on Fangoria, we have these ones called Dead Time Stories. Which have Malcolm McDowell as the host. And they're just phenomenal. We've done, I think, 12 of them. And I really liked those.
Right.
I don't, though. My answer is no. Not really. I mean, I don't. I probably would like listening to them, but I haven't got that much of a history with them.
Yeah. Brandon Morrison on Facebook, he has like 3 quick questions. So, new Hellraiser with Doug Bradley? ?
Yes.
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 Great. The only thing that will possibly save What
we're
was
stoked.
a great franchise, yeah.
Well, the Weinsteins are involved, so I hope Clive still gets to write it and that all happens. So we'll see. When is the Nightbreed Cabal cut coming out to Blu-ray? Sometime next year.
They don't know.
It's going to be a while to get that in shape, considering the elements they have. And where can you buy Gorezone?
You can buy that on the Fangoria website, or you can order a subscription, or you can find us at a convention. Gorezone, because it's kind of our R to X rated magazine, we cannot sell it on newsstands.
Oh, I didn't know that was the
it's
reason.
difficult to do. Well, Fango, we always say Fango's kind of our PG-13. And even with Fango, we, in order to get into Walmart or Target, like Famous Monsters, we would really have to censor our content. So we've chosen not to be in Walmart or Target.
Couldn't you bag it like porn? Like a
I've seen that before.
Target still won't sell it. We tried.
Okay.
Like
But
Walmart
magazine
and Target.
stores would.
Magazine stores will, but we tend to adhere to newsstand regulations, which means we have to kind of limit the language. We can have as much gore as we want in Fangoria. We have to limit the amount of nudity. Is the big thing for newsstand, is they don't want to see nudity and they don't want to see cursing. So blood and violence aside, Fango's pretty PG-13.
But they really do want to see all those things.
They do. I know.
Down, they
I
all
know.
wanna see that.
But Gorezone is the one where we just kind of let loose, no holds barred. Anything goes. And that's the one. If you guys can think of any super gory, super extreme movies that we need to be covering in there, let me know. I'm
when
always
is the
game
next
to pitch
one
some stuff.
is it being obviously be putting together now, but when would that next one come out? It's like 4 times a year?
Yeah, it's 6 times a year.
6.
And
cool.
the next one should be coming out end of December, early January. We're putting it together now. So,
cool.
Yeah, I just submitted an article for it yesterday. So, super psyched.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay. Lauren Elizabeth Irwin asks, she says yes to more possession discussion.
What film? I haven't said it in 2 episodes. So.
Do not encourage
I got a
him.
DVD copy
not
of it
said
this weekend. Supposedly supposed to be in really good. It's a boot, but
Don't watch it. It's coming out on
does that-
Blu-ray.
does that
mean
Just
that-
wait. Just wait.
Does that mean Cody got his copy of it yet or no?
Rebekah just bought it for him.
Sorry,
Cody, I will send you the boot I just got.
But no, she
Send
says
me your address, man.
Yeah, yes to possession discussion. Rebekah has studied and written a lot, so I would love to hear her recommendations, thoughts about the academic side of horror. I'm reading Carol
That's another
Clover's
show.
book
That's a
on
whole
gender
show.
A
horror.
whole nother show. Oh, yeah. If you're reading Carol Clover, I will say a few that I would recommend. Sleazoid Express is one of my faves. That's by Bill Landis. And it goes through kind of the grindhouse marketing side of those films. And I absolutely loved that one. I will also recommend Recreational Horror by Isabel Pinedo. That is the book that I can truly say made me go back and get my PhD or work on it at least.
But she also asked something specific, like how things had changed since Clover's book, right?
Yeah, that's right. And
I don't know
if
if it has. I mean, I think the only thing that's changed is where, partially because of the book, because that book was a big influence on me too. I think part of it is that book and other texts like that made us more self-reflexive, aware of the things that she was pointing out about the genre. And then movies like Cabin in the Woods or any movie that's about a final girl, anything that points that out is now really, that's what's changed. It's that we're more Scream, for instance.
Yeah. I will say in the academic world, that was one of the first academic books on horror that came out. And so if nothing else, it definitely pushed it so that horror became an acceptable topic within the academic realms. Because previous to that, if you went to film school and said, I want to focus on film theory, specifically horror, they would have been like, what? No, you're focusing on Italian neorealism or something. But when I went to the PhD department and said, I want to focus on horror and exploitation, they were like, sure, yeah, it's called paracinema. When you're in heady academics, they don't say horror and exploitation and porn, but paracinema is the same thing. So Carol Clover kind of opened up the door, and then a number of other film theorists like Mark Jankovic, and there's a huge amount that I won't even get into this show, but they definitely have continued the
She was the first person I invited to be a guest on a horror show when I did This Week in Horror. And
Did she come?
No, she didn't even respond to my email. I did a Final Girl episode. I had not Danielle, maybe it was somebody like that, but it was a long time ago. But it was funny. I found her email, and she's teaching at like Berkeley. And I wrote to her and said, hey, we're going to talk about your theory. I'm so excited. And she was probably going, I did that 20 years ago.
Yeah, like whatever.
No, thank you.
See, I stalked mine because Isabel Pinedo wrote this beautiful book called Recreational Terror. And she wrote it in the 90s, but it specifically focused on females viewing horror films. And how they resonated within females and how the reception within females is different from the male reception. Right. She focused on slasher films mostly and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I read her book, noticed she taught at Hunter College. When I went to New York, I emailed her and said I wanted to sit in on one of her classes. I ended up sitting in on the whole semester, and then the next semester I taught the class.
Wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
And she killed her. It sounds like you actually kind of scare me. That was kind of psychotic. Like, I took over her life.
No. She's still one of my
So Dave was her
good-
husband? You took her husband?
She's still one of my very good academic friends.
Who am I here?
So.
Stepfather. I'm gonna watch that this week.
Oh, cool.
The second part of her question was favorite final girls, and when was the last time you were genuinely scared by a film?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
Did we do Final Girls? I can't remember if we ever.
We
not
talked
really.
not only our Friday 13th
Friday
we
13th
discussed,
ones.
which was valid. Yeah.
Ripley's
Well,
always
Ripley's
been
the
mine.
ultimate. She's the really the
Still
ultimate.
be your favorite though.
No,
Yes, she
yeah.
is.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
she's like kind of the ultimate. She kind of to me is what the definition of us is.
I don't think so
Yeah,
because
she-
most people immediately point to like Laurie Strode as
Yeah,
like
Jamie Lee
that's what the
Curtis.
final girl
She's
is,
not a final
or
girl.
Texas Chainsaw
Go watch
Massacre.
the rest of the series. She's finaled.
Oh no, she comes back.
Her ass got finaled.
Or Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Marilyn Chambers in that, and yeah.
Well,
But,
this is there's a really interesting difference. I think there's a real difference. This would be up for debate between the term survivor girl and final girl. I think a survivor girl is Marilyn Chambers in Texas Chainsaw. She does nothing to survive that movie. Personally, she takes
She
no
just
drastic
runs
action.
and screams.
She runs and screams. Therefore, she is to me a survivor. But a final girl to me is somebody who, through their cunning and their need to live, find a way to either defeat the monster or so. There's a difference between defeating the monster and surviving.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
the monster is not defeated in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but the person survives. I think movies where the character, like, I love those. Man, You're Next is the best recent example. I would say All the Boys Love Mandy Lane, but that comes with a twist. So
Yeah, you can't
do
do
that
that
one
one
yet.
yet.
But no, there's some, I think that is some interesting debate. But favorites, Nancy. I mean, Nancy to me is
That's a
from
pretty good
Nightmare
one
is
from
just,
Nightmare.
She's just so it's a great movie.
I'm going to go with Kate Hodge, the lead of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Leatherface, because she's both a survivor and a
Nice.
a final girl. Yeah, she's both.
Nice.
So I like that
I'll
one.
take that.
All right.
Scariest
Yeah.
thing?
What was the last time we were scared by something?
that's
Scared
good.
by a movie? I can't even. I mean, it's weird because I don't get scared the way that. When you're 12, you're very impressionable to things like Nightmare on Elm Street. And,
But what about
that stuff.
watching, if you watch something alone at home by yourself and then you turn it off and then it's dark and stuff.
And you start thinking about it?
Do you have to say,
remember
I have
that?
invited you guys over to watch this film like 5 times now. The Baby's Room
Who has time?
was the last film I watched it. Not by myself. Dave was there, but it was one that we just
But
put
you were
in.
pregnant, right?
No,
Oh.
I watched this like 6 years ago,
okay.
when the film first came out, and it was the first film in a long time that I was generally kind of like, man, that was freaky because it's a ghost story.
Yeah, I think ghost
it's
stories are
not-
the only ones that do that.
It's not
Yeah.
it's not a scary kid story because I know you hate those, Elric.
I mean, I don't hate, but I'm kind of over them.
It's not a scary kid story. It's much more about ghosts in the house that he can only see through the baby monitor. And the baby is just kind of, an ancillary thing sitting there, but it's the baby monitor that the ghosts are speaking to him through. But it's the last one that I was generally like, man, this is pretty chilling. I rewatched Exorcist 3 for the FEARnet article I wrote last
which was
week.
huge for us. Man.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
I'm glad that one went over
Well, it's
well.
a great movie.
Yeah, it got a lot of love, and it's been shared around quite a bit.
Excellent. But yeah, I did that one just because I always submit a list to FEARnet of what I want to cover each month. And Halloween rolled around and I was like, you know what? I really want to watch something scary. So I watched Exorcist 3 again, just because that's one that had always stuck with me is like, okay, this is a pretty freaky film. And I watched it again. And yeah, it's a pretty freaky film. There's some generally scary moments in that. Old people are messed up. So yeah, that's another
there's
one.
movies that if you can remember back to when you first thinking about things like Hellraiser, the first time you knew what a Cenobite was in that, there's some freaky stuff. In
Oh
there.
yeah.
But now if I watch, of course, I wouldn't be
It's
scared.
not as scary.
The last one, for me, it's only ever ghost stories. I can't be scared by any of that stuff, ever. It's impossible. My heartbeat doesn't even change. Anything supernatural can often kind of, if it's good. Paranormal 2 was the last one I watched alone on DVD, not on the theater. If I watch those movies in the theater, they do nothing to me. No, I don't even jump really. Like
Conjuring. I saw you jump at The Conjuring.
hardly compared to the person between us. I was probably just ricocheting from them leaping out. No, but Paranormal 2, I watched it at home, and I remember because it's all suburban, the kind of house you live in, little creepy, weird things happening. I found that film to be quite unsettling in that way, like in a way where I turn off TV and feel a little like, ugh. Because that shit could be real.
Yeah.
That's the difference
I
between a
guess.
monster and a,
See, the ghost ones don't mess me up as much, but you know what really scares the shit out of me is they actually had a South Park episode on it last week, murder porn. Those shows like Cold Case Files and
you mean the true stories, like
those true stories.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
love watching them, but as soon as I turn them off, I'm like, there's a serial killer outside.
Yeah.
I know it. And those are the ones that keep me up at night because I hear a noise and I immediately know somebody's breaking in because I just watched a story about these people where somebody just broke in and didn't know them. But yeah, those
Well, that's what I
mess
mean.
me
It's
up.
like the news, the real life stuff's a lot creepier. It's
Yeah,
like-
yeah.
But
Hey,
yeah.
the only thing I remember scaring me, I mean, it's been so long, but the only thing I've never been brave enough to revisit is The Entity. I saw it once as a kid.
That film
I've
disturbed me
never
for
seen it
sure.
again.
Mm-hmm.
It's sitting at home. And most recently, you know, Conjuring and Insidious. They didn't scare me in the sense that I was,
Yeah.
you know, they
Insidious
had
had a few
scares
moments, yeah.
in them. They had
Yeah.
moments that I was like, oh, that was an effective scare. But, you know, I mean, things affect us a little bit differently
And
now.
it is hard to scare people who grow up on this.
I've said it on the show a few times before. Event Horizon definitely kind of shook me the first time I saw it, just because I was completely unprepared for it. It wasn't even billed as a horror film. It was just kind of marketed as a sci-fi film. And when I first saw it, it definitely shook me a little bit.
Yeah.
And last question from Jeremy Wickenfuss. I hope I said that right as well. Sorry.
I
if
love
didn't,
that
Jeremy.
last name.
This is actually a really great question. Elijah Wood turned in a pretty strong performance as a complete psychopath and maniac, which I agree.
Yep.
What mainstream or unassuming actor would you love to see playing evil or completely against type? And he says, for me, it would be Emma Stone or Bill Hader.
That is a good question.
pretty fun.
I like
You
that
know,
one,
that's,
Jeremy.
yeah, gonna have to think about that.
You know
Anybody
what
have
the funny
anything?
thing about it is most actors end up in a horror film anyway. Like really, it's hard to have an acting career in the long run and not end up or start in a horror film. Like really, you start looking at big names. Like when I read that question, I was like, I'd love to see Naomi Watts in a horror film. And I'm like, of course, she'd been.
Yeah,
in
but
a
She's
was she a
done
psycho
them.
though? In a, you know, like was
seeing
she
her as a
the
creep-
bad, the
I see what
evil
you mean,
person?
as an evil person.
She was in Mulholland Drive.
For moments. It's she becomes you're right in this last act. I think for me the only actor
The
I'm really-
comparison is Elijah. They're saying like the way Elijah did for
probably the only actor I really am even interested at the moment, like mainstream Hollywood actor, is Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo, I just think so really, and I think he can probably, because he's such a good actor and he's so likable, he could probably really scare people.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite actors.
And
I'll
Daniel
watch.
Day-Lewis.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis. I have to say Rob Corddry. And that's a weird one, but
Oh, he's like the comedian guy.
Yeah, he's the comedian guy. He's on Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
And it's just because a couple of years ago, my husband was pitching this film around Hollywood. And when you pitch a film, you tend to put these actors, like your ideal actors, into the slot so that people can kind of picture what the role would be like. And he was pitching Rob Corddry for this serial killer role, this guy who goes completely bonkers. And it hit me. And, you know, I was like, regardless of the script, I was just suddenly like, yeah, I want to see him do that, because I just see him as this unassuming, almost jovial killer. So,
Well, Brian Dennehy gave one of the best performances ever in that kind of role.
Yes.
And he's a guy you never would think would be in
what
a
was
horror.
the name of that movie?
Well, it was the John Wayne Gacy story,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Yeah, you
what
brought that
it's
up once before. It might
Yeah,
just
we
be
talked
Gacy.
about it because I was talking about The Deliberate Stranger.
Yeah, it's a disturbing
which
role.
is a great one in that case.
Yeah.
You know what? Just because I'm skimming through comedies in my phone, and I just came across Bachelor Party. Tom Hanks. Would love to see him go evil.
Yeah. You
We
know,
never
Robin
think about
Williams
it.
went evil, and it was actually pretty
Yeah, no,
decent.
Robin-
Yeah,
he was good.
in what was it? Insomnia.
The
1 hour
photo
photo.
one, 1 hour
Oh,
photo.
1 hour photo, but he's great in Insomnia. He's like the serial killer in that. And
No, he's gone dark a few times
he's
now.
pretty
but yeah.
fantastic. But yeah, somebody like that, like a Tom Hanks type, I think. But I like the one that you picked as well. Both of you guys.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's about it. We already plugged all the stuff that we needed to plug.
I forgot the one film that I'm super, super, super psyched to see at AFM. Oculus.
What's that?
That is the new one from the guys who did Absentia, and it was the one that got the biggest raves at TIFF.
Yeah,
So,
got a lot of good buzz.
I am
Apparently,
super
that's
psyched
one
to
of
see
those
that
kind of
one.
movies that might creep us out. Like a lot of mirrors, a lot of hauntings,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So it could be
So
Good.
I am.
Well, this was
Hope
our
so.
epic catch up. There's no guess. This show's going to be 20 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Cut to
Yeah,
Brian
right,
in the booth
guys.
2 hours later.
Passing out.
Brian, are you still awake, man?
It's like, are these guys still talking about these fucking movies?
Well, we don't get a chance to do this much anymore because we do load you with great guests. So it's nice to, every 20 episodes, maybe we're going to check in with the three of us.
Yeah.
Keep it
and,
real.
And you know
Back
what?
to
And
our
again,
roots.
thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
Please go on the Geek Nation page, right underneath every episode. You can comment. It'll show up on your Facebook, on your friend's Facebook. go on our Facebook page, interact with us, go on our iTunes. We really appreciate the feedback. We've been getting a lot of it the last couple of months.
And definitely keep giving us suggestions or ideas for topics you want to hear, because we can't get to them straight away. But when the right guest, it's great for us because we do love to keep it topic based.
Yeah,
so.
and we're trying to figure out the rest of the year. I was very pleased with how most of September and October worked out on the show. We had some great, interesting guests and unique topics.
And we know
stuff.
Christmas is going to get interesting. So we'll just see what happens in the next few weeks. But it's good.
Yeah. So thank you again, and we'll see you next week.
See you then.
Bye, guys.